What is Down syndrome? It's one of the frequent questions that we come across on a daily basis. Down syndrome, in my personal opinion and my view, is a genetic condition, it's an accident of nature. As you know, every human cell has 23 pairs of chromosomes that makes up the genetic framework. Sometimes there is an extra copy of the 21st chromosome that gets into the human cell, and this causes an imbalance, and that's what leads to Down syndrome. So why do we call it Down syndrome? What's the name got to do with Downs? Dr. John Langdon Down in 1866 was the very first person to publish his entire research related to the issues and the condition related to this problem. Because of his publication, which was the very first one that came out, his name, Dr. Down, got associated with this condition, and that's why it's now known as Down's syndrome. So who can get Down syndrome and who is more likely to have an issue related to Down syndrome? This is a question that normally comes up, and we would like to give you more information about this. Down syndrome can happen to anybody. As I mentioned earlier in one of the episodes, it's an accident of nature. It could happen to anybody, any religion, any race, any nationality across the world. But there are some likelihoods that could have an influence on who could have a more incidence of Down syndrome. One of the issues could be related to hereditary. If you have individuals with Down syndrome in your families, and even it could be few generations before, there is a likelihood that that genetic mutation or that genetic condition exists within the family, and it could reappear somewhere down the line. But where and when, nobody knows. Another probability that has been identified and published is that if women have children later on in their lives, past 35 and on, the probability of having a child with Down syndrome can increase slightly. But having said that, with more women having children when they are much younger, nowadays we find over 80% of children with Down syndrome, even in parents or in mothers who are less than 35 years of age. Down syndrome is not a disease. Many people come and ask us, how can we treat this individual with Down syndrome? You can only treat diseases. Down syndrome is not a disease. It's a genetic condition. It's an accident of nature, as we mentioned. So if you were to ask me, what is the treatment for Down syndrome? You can't treat anything which is not a disease. But there are a certain few issues that could be associated with a person who has Down syndrome, a few other medical conditions that could develop, and something that we need to be aware of. Those issues need to be addressed, those issues need to be treated. But we'll be talking to you a lot more about that in one of the future videos that we'll be publishing shortly. Stay tuned, stay connected. This is Mission 20 together with Hope Qatar Center for Children with Special Needs, supporting you and giving you a lot of information during this Down Syndrome Awareness Month.